The villagers still whispered about the wedding long after the lanterns burned out and the dust settled on the empty road. They whispered because no one could understand why a young, quietly handsome rancher like Eli Carter would marry a stranger who arrived overweight, breathless, and clutching only a small travel bag and a cow she refused to sell. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Eli hadn't chosen her for what she looked like, and she hadn't chosen him for what he had. Both of them walked into that tiny church with secrets heavy enough to crush the heart of anyone who listened long enough. And everything that happened after their wedding night, when she locked the door between them, would change their lives in ways neither expected. Eli Carter ran the ranch alone after his father died and his mother moved into town. His land stretched wide, but his life felt small. Every season grew harder, every debt taller. He needed cattle, needed help, needed anything that could keep the ranch alive for one more year. So when the traveling merchant told him about a woman heading west alone, a woman offering a cow in exchange for a secure home and marriage on paper, he said yes out of desperation. He tried not to show. She arrived at sunset. Her name was Marybelle. She was bigger than most women in town, dressed plainly, carrying herself like someone who had learned that life rarely welcomed her warmly. She didn't smile when she introduced herself. Instead, she looked at Eli as though bracing herself for rejection she believed would inevitably come. Her cow, a gentle brown heifer, stood tied to a post behind her, the only possession she protected like family. They married that same evening, under the dimming sky, with two strangers as witnesses. Eli felt the tremor in her hand when he placed the ring on her finger. He was gentle with her, and she noticed. But not enough to trust it. When they reached the ranch house after the small reception, Marybelle carried her bag inside without a word. She walked down the hall, entered the bedroom, and closed the door. Eli waited for the latch to click. Then it did, firm, final. She had locked him out. Eli stood there in the silence, unsure which of them felt lonelier that he didn't knock. He didn't press. Instead, he slept on the couch and tried not to imagine what kind of sorrow makes a woman lock herself away on her wedding night. The next morning, Marybelle emerged before dawn. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes darted anywhere that wasn't his face, but she spoke first. "I'll work," she said. "I can pull my weight. You don't owe me kindness." Eli blinked, surprised by the firmness in her voice. "You're my wife now, Marybelle. I intend to treat you like it." Her jaw trembled once, just once, before she nodded and walked past him. They fell into a rhythm neither expected. Marybelle worked hard, harder than Eli thought anyone who carried such emotional exhaustion could. She carried feed, cleaned stalls, learned how to rope calves and mend fences. She cooked in the evenings, though she rarely joined him at the table. She preferred the quiet, the corners, the shadows, but at night, Eli still slept on the couch. And every night, the soft click of her door echoed across the hallway like a small heartbreak. As the days grew warmer, Eli learned small pieces of her story despite her refusal to speak it. He learned she refused help not because she was proud but because she didn't believe she deserved it. He learned she wouldn't let anyone touch her cow because it was the last gift from the grandmother who raised her when her parents abandoned her. He learned that when people in town stared at her body, she pretended not to notice, but her hands would tighten into fists behind her skirt. One evening, after a long day of mending the corral, Eli found her sitting by the cow, stroking its fur with a tenderness that made his chest ache. "You don't have to work yourself to the bone," he said gently. "You're safe here." "Safe," she repeated softly, as if testing whether the word could fit inside her life. Then she shook her head. "Nothing is safe. People pretend to be kind until they decide you're not worth it." Eli sat beside her in the straw. "What made you think I'd be like that?" She hesitated, eyes shining in the dim barn light. "You will be," she whispered. "Everyone leaves eventually." Eli swallowed hard. "Maybe not everyone." For a moment, she looked at him, really looked at him, as though she wanted to believe him but didn't know how. But that night, her door locked again. Weeks passed before anything changed. And when it did, it wasn't gentle. A storm rolled in, violent, sudden, one of the worst Eli had seen in years. The wind tore at the roof, lightning cracked across the sky, and the cattle scattered in the dark. Eli ran into the storm without hesitation. What he didn't expect was Marybelle running right behind him. They worked side by side through mud and thunder, driving cattle back toward shelter. The rain soaked through her dress, her hair whipped around her face, and yet she didn't stop. Never once. Eli watched her wade through knee-deep muck to rescue a calf stuck between broken boards. She lifted it into her arms despite her breath coming in ragged bursts. When the storm finally eased and the last calf was safe, Marybelle collapsed to her knees, shaking. Eli rushed to her, pulling his coat around her, shielding her from the cold. "Why would you come out here like that?" he asked, voice raw. Because this ranch matters to you," she whispered. "And you matter to me more than I should admit." The word struck him deeper than the wind ever could. He touched her shoulder gently. "Marybelle, you don't have to hide from me." Her breath caught, and her eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. "I'm scared," she confessed. "Everywhere I've been, people judge me before I speak. They laugh at my size, my face, my quiet. I locked the door so you wouldn't see me and regret this marriage before it even began." Eli cupped her cheek carefully, like she might break if he moved too fast. "I don't care about your size. I care about your heart. And what I've seen so far is beautiful." She cried then, not softly, not politely, but deeply, as though releasing years of hurt she'd carried alone. That night, she didn't lock the door, she left it open. Their marriage grew in the quiet ways love often does, not from grand gestures, but from soft mornings where Marybelle made coffee before Eli woke, from evenings where Eli brushed her cow while she hummed old songs, from stolen conversations where she began to share pieces of the girl she used to be before the world taught her to hide. They learned each other's rhythms, fears, hopes. Eli discovered she had dreams of planting a garden big enough to feed not just themselves but anyone in need. She learned he feared failing the ranch more than anything, because it was the last piece of his father he had left. They healed each other slowly, patiently, gently. One afternoon, as summer heat settled over the fields, Marybelle stood watching the cattle graze. Eli walked up beside her, wiping sweat from his brow. "Funny, isn't it?" she said softly. "I came here with nothing but a cow and a heart full of fear." Eli slipped his hand into hers. "You came here with enough courage to start a new life. That's not nothing." She looked at him, eyes warm with a love she no longer tried to hide. "And you gave me a place where I didn't have to earn my right to exist." Eli squeezed her hand. "You were worth loving from the moment you stepped off that wagon." Marybelle's throat tightened. I finally believe that." And in the golden light of evening, surrounded by the land they now shared, they kissed for the first time, slow, sure, full of the promise that neither of them would ever face life alone again. Their story, whispered by the townsfolk for years to come, wasn't about a rancher marrying a stranger for a cow. It became the story of two wounded souls who helped each other rise, who learned that love doesn't come beautiful and perfect, it comes raw, honest, and exactly when you stop believing you deserve it. And that, more than anything, was the miracle that saved them both.